My name is Jason, and I've been a firefighter for 8 years. 8 years of running toward danger when everyone else runs away. 8 years of seeing the worst and best of humanity. 8 years of brotherhood forged in smoke and flame. I thought I understood everything about courage, about trust, about what it meant to have someone's back in life or death situations. Then I met Eric, and discovered I didn't know anything at all. It started 6 months ago when Eric transferred to Station 19 from downtown. The captain introduced him during morning briefing as a veteran with 12 years of experience, specialized training in hazmat and high-rise rescue, and a reputation for being fearless in situations that would make most people freeze. What the captain didn't mention was that Eric Martinez was also the most beautiful man I'd ever seen. He was tall and lean, built like a runner, with dark hair that always looked slightly disheveled no matter how many times he ran his hands through it. His eyes were this incredible warm brown, and when he smiled, which wasn't often in those first few weeks, it transformed his entire face from serious and professional to something that made my chest tight and my thoughts scattered. Which was a problem, because I'd spent 8 years carefully not thinking about men that way. I'd dated women, had a few serious relationships, even lived with someone for 2 years. It wasn't that I was unhappy or unsatisfied. It was just that I'd never felt the kind of consuming attraction that people wrote songs about. I'd assumed I was just more focused on my career than most people, more dedicated to the job than to romance. But watching Eric suit up for his first call with our crew, seeing the calm competence in his movements and the way he checked and double-checked his gear with methodical precision, I felt something stir that had nothing to do with professional admiration. "New guy seems solid," said Mike, our driver-engineer, as we watched Eric introduce himself to the rest of the crew. Heard he requested the transfer after his partner died in a warehouse fire downtown. His partner, work partner, Williams, firefighter named Torres. They'd been working together for 6 years when it happened. Mike's voice was somber. Word as Eric went back into the building 3 times trying to find him. By the time they pulled him out, the roof had already collapsed. I looked at Eric with new understanding. The seriousness, the careful distance he maintained from the rest of us. It wasn't standoffishness, it was grief. Over the next few weeks, I found myself paying attention to Eric in ways that had nothing to do with work and everything to do with the way he moved, the sound of his laugh during the rare moments when someone managed to break through his reserve, the careful way he interacted with victims on calls. He was good at his job. Better than good, actually. He had the kind of instincts that couldn't be taught, an ability to read fire behavior and structural integrity that probably came from years of experience combined with natural talent. But it was the small moments that really got to me. The way he always made sure the probies ate during long calls. How he'd quietly take over equipment maintenance that wasn't technically his responsibility. The patient way he explained complex rescue techniques to newer crew members without ever making them feel stupid for asking questions. "You've been staring at the new guy for 10 minutes, observed Carmen, our paramedic, as we cleaned equipment after a particularly messy car accident. "Either you're planning to ask him out or you're plotting his murder." "What? I'm not staring." "Uh-huh. Jason, honey, I've known you for 3 years. You've never shown this much interest in anyone, male or female. So what's the story?" I could feel heat rising in my cheeks. "There's no story. He's a good firefighter, that's all." "Right. And I'm the Queen of England," Carmen grinned. "For what it's worth, I think you could do worse. Eric seems like a decent guy under all that brooding." "Carmen, I'm not gay." "Okay. But if you were, Eric would be a good choice. Just saying." The conversation bothered me more than it should have. I'd never questioned my sexuality before, never felt confused about what I wanted or who I was attracted to. But there was no denying that my feelings for Eric went beyond professional respect or even friendship. I found myself volunteering for training exercises when I knew he'd be there, lingering in the common room when he was reading, making excuses to work on equipment maintenance when he was doing the same. It was pathetic and obvious, and I was sure everyone at the station had noticed, but I couldn't seem to stop myself. The breaking point came during a structure fire at an old apartment building on the east side. It was a routine call initially, second-floor kitchen fire, residents evacuated, straightforward interior attack to knock down the flames and prevent spread to other units. Eric and I were assigned to search the third floor for any remaining occupants while the engine crew worked on suppression below. We'd cleared 2 apartments and were moving toward the third when I heard it. A faint sound that might have been crying coming from behind a door at the end of the hallway. "You hear that?" I asked Eric through the radio. "Yeah, sounds like a kid." We approached the apartment door, and Eric tested the handle. Locked, but the sound was definitely coming from inside. "Fire department," Eric called out. "Anyone in there?" The crying got louder, more desperate. Without hesitation, Eric took his Halligan to the door, forcing it open in 2 quick motions. The apartment was full of smoke, but not actively burning yet. We could see flames licking up the outside of the building through the windows, though, which meant we didn't have much time before the fire spread to this unit. "Stay low," Eric said, dropping to his hands and knees to search under the smoke. "Kids probably in a back room, scared and hiding." We crawled through the apartment systematically, calling out and listening for responses. The crying had stopped, which was more ominous than comforting. It either meant the child had heard us and was staying quiet, or something worse. Eric found her in a bedroom closet. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, unconscious from smoke inhalation but still breathing. He scooped her up with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. "Got her," he said into his radio, coming out. But when we reached the apartment door, the hallway was a wall of flame. The fire had spread faster than anyone had anticipated, cutting off our exit route. "Command, this is Martinez," Eric said, his voice calm despite the situation. "We're trapped on the 3rd floor, apartment 3C. Main hallway is fully involved." "Copy that, Martinez. Working on getting a ladder to your position. Can you make it to a window?" Eric and I exchanged a look. The windows in the apartment faced the courtyard, not the street. Even if we could get a ladder positioned there, it would take time we might not have. "Williams, take the girl," Eric said, transferring the unconscious child to my arms. "I'm going to see if there's another way out." While Eric checked the apartment's layout, I focused on the little girl. She was breathing but barely responsive, and her lips had a blue tinge that meant she needed oxygen soon. I'd done CPR on kids before, but never while trapped in a burning building with no clear exit strategy. "Talk to me, Eric," I called out as smoke began seeping under the apartment door. No other exits. Windows faced the courtyard like we thought, and there's no fire escape on this side. Eric reappeared from the back of the apartment, his expression grim. "We're going to have to wait for the ladder." But even as he said it, we could hear the fire spreading in the walls around us. The apartment wouldn't be safe much longer, and the little girl in my arms was running out of time. "Command, Martinez again. We need that ladder now. Child requires immediate medical attention." "Working on it, Martinez. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes might as well have been 3 hours. The smoke was getting thicker, the heat more intense, and I could see Eric calculating our odds with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. "Jason," he said quietly, moving closer so the radio wouldn't pick up our conversation, "if this goes bad." "It's not going bad. If it does, you take the girl and go first. Don't wait for me. Don't look back. Get her out." I stared at him. "Eric, we're all getting out of here. Promise me." There was something in his voice, not fear, but a kind of resigned determination that scared me more than the fire. Like he'd already decided he wasn't making it out and was focused solely on making sure the rest of us did. "No," I said firmly. "We go together or we don't go at all. Jason, be practical. If someone has to. No one has to do anything heroic and stupid. We wait for the ladder, we all go down together, and we all go home at the end of shift." I shifted the little girl to one arm and grabbed Eric's turnout coat with my free hand. "Eric, look at me." He met my eyes, and I saw something there that made my chest ache. Not just the grief I'd suspected, but a bone-deep weariness that spoke of too many losses, too many times when someone didn't make it home. "You're not responsible for what happened to your old partner," I said, "and you're not going to fix it by sacrificing yourself for the rest of us." Eric's face went very still. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know that Torres wouldn't want you to die trying to make up for the fact that you couldn't save him. I know that throwing your life away won't bring him back, Jason. And I know that I can't do this job without you. I can't lose you too." The words hung between us, more honest than I'd intended, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to examine. But they were true. Somewhere over the past 6 months, Eric had become essential to my life in ways that had nothing to do with firefighting and everything to do with the way he made me feel more like myself than I'd ever been. Before Eric could respond, we heard the sound we'd been waiting for, the hydraulic whine of a ladder truck positioning outside the building. Martinez, Williams, ladders in position at the courtyard window. How copy? Copy, command, moving to the window now. The window was in the bedroom where Eric had found the girl, and it took both of us working together to force it open. The frame was warped from heat, and the mechanism was old and stiff. By the time we got it open, smoke was pouring out of the apartment door behind us, and I could see flames starting to eat through the walls. The ladder was there, solid and reassuring, with one of our crew members already climbing up to help with the rescue. Kid first, Eric said, taking the little girl from my arms and preparing to hand her down to the firefighter on the ladder. Then you, then me, I said. Jason, you should. Eric. I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me again. Together, we go together. He nodded, something shifting in his expression. Together. The transfer went smoothly. The little girl was passed down the ladder to waiting paramedics. Then Eric climbed out and started down. Then me. By the time we reached the ground, the apartment we'd been trapped in was fully engulfed, flames visible through the windows we'd just escaped from. Cutting it a little close there, don't you think? Said Captain Rodriguez as we checked in with command. Just keeping things interesting, Cap, Eric replied, but his voice was shaky in a way that suggested the adrenaline was finally wearing off. The little girl was conscious and breathing on her own by the time we got to the ambulance, asking for her mother and complaining about the oxygen mask. It was the best possible outcome for a situation that could have gone very differently. Nice work in there, I told Eric as we cleaned our gear back at the station. You too. Good catch on hearing her in the first place. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts about what had happened. It wasn't unusual for firefighters to process difficult calls quietly. Sometimes you needed time to decompress before you could talk about what you'd seen or done. But there was something else hanging between us, something that had started with our conversation in that smoke-filled apartment and was growing heavier with each passing moment. Jason, Eric said finally, setting down the helmet he'd been cleaning. About what you said in there. Which part? The part about not being able to lose me too. Eric's voice was careful, uncertain. What did you mean by that? I could have deflected, made a joke about crew solidarity or the importance of experienced partners. Instead, I found myself being honest in a way that scared and exhilarated me in equal measure. I meant that you matter to me. More than you should, probably. More than I expected when you transferred here. Jason, I know it's complicated. I know you're dealing with losing Torres, and I know this isn't the right time or place. But Eric, I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just professional respect. Eric was very still, his dark eyes fixed on my face with an intensity that made my heart race. What do you feel for me? The question was quiet, almost whispered, but it carried the weight of everything we'd been dancing around for months. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to meet you, I said. I feel like every relationship I had before was just practice for understanding what it means to actually want someone. I feel like I'd rather spend one day being honest about caring about you than a lifetime pretending I don't. Eric was quiet for so long that I started to panic, wondering if I'd misread the situation entirely, if I'd just destroyed whatever friendship we'd built by admitting to feelings he didn't share. But then he stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to catch the scent of smoke and sweat, and something uniquely him. Jason, he said softly, I need you to know something. What? Torres wasn't just my work partner. We were together. For 3 years. I loved him, and I couldn't save him, and I've been carrying that guilt ever since. The admission hit me like a physical blow, not because Eric had been with a man, but because of the pain in his voice, the way his shoulders seemed to carry the weight of that loss. I'm sorry, I said. I can't imagine how hard that must have been. When I transferred here, I told myself I was done with the job, done with caring about people, done with putting myself in a position to lose someone I loved again. Eric's voice was rough with emotion. But then I met you, and you made me remember what it felt like to want to live instead of just survive. Eric, I've been fighting it for months, telling myself it was too soon, that I was dishonoring Torres's memory, that I couldn't risk going through that kind of loss again. Eric reached up, his hand cupping my face with gentle precision. But tonight, when I thought we might not make it out of there, all I could think about was how much I regretted not telling you how I feel. And how do you feel? Like I'm falling in love with you. Like I've been falling in love with you since the first day I walked into this station and you looked at me like I was something worth knowing. The confession hung between us for a moment, fragile and precious and absolutely perfect. Then Eric leaned forward, and I met him halfway, our lips touching in a kiss that tasted like smoke and possibility in coming home. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads resting together in the quiet of the empty equipment bay. So what happens now? I asked. Now we take it one day at a time. We figure out how to be together while doing this job that we both love, and that's inherently dangerous. We learn to trust that caring about each other makes us stronger, not more vulnerable. I can do that. Good, because Jason, I need you to know, what I feel for you doesn't diminish what I felt for Torres. It's different, but it's real, and it's worth fighting for. I know, and Eric? I'm not going anywhere. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Eric smiled then, the first completely unguarded expression I'd seen from him since he'd transferred to our station, and it was beautiful enough to make my chest ache with how much I already loved him. 6 months later, we were living together in a small house near the station, learning how to navigate a relationship built on mutual respect, shared danger, and the kind of love that made everything else seem manageable. Eric still had nightmares sometimes about Torres, about fires that ended badly, about all the ways our job could go wrong. But he also laughed more, smiled more, seemed to find joy in small moments that he'd forgotten how to appreciate. Any regrets? I asked one evening as we sat on our porch, sharing a beer after a long shift that had included 2 structure fires and a car accident. About what? About taking a chance on us. About letting me into your life despite all the risks that come with caring about another firefighter. Eric was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. You know what I regret? What? I regret waiting so long to tell you how I felt. I regret all those months of fighting something that was probably inevitable from the moment we met. You think it was inevitable? Jason, you risked your life to make sure I didn't do something stupid and heroic in that apartment fire. You saw through my grief and guilt to the person I was trying to remember how to be. You made me want to live again instead of just surviving each day. Eric took my hand, intertwining our fingers. Yeah, I think it was inevitable. As we sat there watching the sun set over our neighborhood, I thought about all the ways my life had changed since Eric had walked into Station 19. I was still the same firefighter I'd always been, still committed to the job and the people we served. But I was also happier, more complete, more myself than I'd ever been. I love you, I told Eric, the words as natural as breathing now. I love you too, he replied, lifting our joined hands to press a kiss to my knuckles, through fire and smoke and whatever comes next. It was a promise and a prayer and a declaration all rolled into one, and as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, I knew that whatever challenges our dangerous profession might throw at us, we'd face them together. After all, we'd already survived the hardest part, finding each other in the first place and being brave enough to fight for what we'd found.